I think like you always should go for low hanging fruit. And the first thing people need to do is optimize their portfolio. And it doesn't have to be amazing, but even if you already have some editing work, I still get a lot of Google Drive links as a potential client, and that just doesn't work. If you want to stand out, you need a portfolio, and this don't spend too much time on this, because that's also the pitfall that some people then spend like weeks to create a portfolio. But even if you have something different than Google Drive, and there's enough templates for this, or use Card, or Bento is a site, but also Framer, they have really nice like portfolio pages. That's at least something. So that's the first one. The second thing I think is really important is to start like outreaching, doing sales. I think a lot of people are too scared to do that, or they're like, oh, I'm not at that level yet, or they're maybe like, okay, I don't know if I can fulfill the job. But you need to see it like this: even if you start, you need to get going, you need to get the ball rolling, and it's almost like a snowball, right? Like if you start out small, you need to get momentum, and you don't get that by just sitting on your sitting on your ass and like just trying to get better at editing. Of course, that's always something you need to do, but like reaching out is definitely the way to go. Because if you work with clients, and it doesn't have to be crazy, but at least you get some portfolio in. You can even work for free in the beginning if you're too scared, and see it like this. Even for like a potential client, if you work for free, there's like zero expectations from like a potential client standpoint. It's all just extra. If you create a nice video that they can use, it's already nice. If they don't, then that's also fine. So I think in that case, yeah, like at least get the ball rolling. I think that's the most important thing. Yeah, that's also a good question. So, in my opinion, and I'm just telling some secrets here, but basically, what I also always teach, like behind the scenes, try to go where other people don't go, and like DMing on Instagram can work, but like I would advise that more to like people that already have like a good Instagram page, for example, that have some credibility, that like are trustworthy. Because a lot of people that are outreaching on Instagram and they just started out, and they're competing with a lot of other editors, so it's really hard to stand out. It's also, of course, depends on who you reach out to, but I would always advise to find other ways to get into contact with these potential clients. So basically anything, if that's like email or LinkedIn or anything else than Instagram, basically like just trying to get through to them through different ways. Because, for example, on YouTube, you have a feature to contact or see a business email. And what I see is like almost every YouTuber, they didn't change that email, and they're quite active on this email. So you can easily reach out on email. Whereas if you would reach out to them on Instagram, where they maybe have 80,000 followers, and they have like a lot of Instagram requests, it's going to be really hard to stand out. So like find a way to still like reach out to them, and this depends a bit on certain niches, because some target audiences like are not on LinkedIn, for example. But there's a lot of business owners, or for example, e-commerce owners that are on LinkedIn. And sometimes it's funny because sometimes they have like 100K followers on YouTube, and then they have 300 connections on LinkedIn. And then I connect with them, and I'm like, yeah, well, I found the secret way to get into contact with you, because I can now just DM with you, even though like everyone is trying to go through Instagram. Yeah, 300 connections on LinkedIn, and that happens so often. Good question. Well, it depends a bit on the day, but normally, for example, I work out 3 times a week, so that's one thing, part of my routine. In the morning, I almost always work in a coffee store, because then I can get the most shit done. And then mainly like after, I would say like after 12ish, I always do my meetings and calls. So like to get the day started, because what I see a lot is that if I don't do this, then especially if I need to edit something myself, I can't get it done in time, and then yeah, it's just shit. But for example, today is a good example. This morning I already created 11 reels for a client, and because the deadline is on Friday, but I knew I was busy with this new client, so maybe I don't have enough time tomorrow or on Friday. So I just plan my meetings like during more like around after 2 or 3, and like before that I try to get as much done as possible between those hours, and also the work that is sometimes not so nice. And of course, eventually you also become, or you're also at a stage where you're outsourcing stuff. So I also have contact with my with editors that work for me. Mainly I do that a bit like through the day. It's not perfect. There's some people that really schedule like an hour of messaging, but for me that doesn't really work, because I work with people sometimes with different time zones, and then they don't answer, or then they do answer, and then I just want to answer directly instead of like having a time frame. For some people that works really well. It's nice for distractions, because then you can just turn your phone off and like basically only be available in that 1 hour. But yeah, for me that doesn't work yet. Maybe in the future. Yeah, good question. And actually, to jump into that, also to be fully transparent, I'm not the best editor in the world, and there's better editors even in my community, like that are better editing than me. But still, they lack communication skills, or maybe they don't. But I mean, there's also editors that earn a lot anyway. But what I do think, what you're saying, I think in terms of earning, sometimes it's better to have better communication skills and sales skills, and like have mediocre editing than the other way around. Because what I do see is that, yeah, like the way you sell something and the way something is valued is of course really depending on your communication. So if you're if you can edit great but you can't really convey that message, or you can't really do the sales, then yeah, you're still gonna it's still going to be valued less. That being said, to answer your question, there is a bit of a difference. What I see a lot is like, so low paying clients. I mean, that's relative for everyone, but low paying clients, what I see a lot is like quick messagings, but they really want to know your price quickly. They don't want to jump on a call. I mean, there's of course some exceptions, but generally the sales funnel is really short, right? And with long or longer sales funnels, you also have like higher paying clients, because it's also more worth it. And how that goes normally, for example, like a client that pays 2 to 3K, basically you first have a discovery call in which you basically speak with this client. You see if you're even a good fit, and this is always not even in a selling way. I always try to say this to people, because again, you don't have to overcomplicate it and like make it like a sales call. I think when you stamp it as a sales call, you're only going to put a lot of pressure on yourself. If you just see this call as like, okay, can I work for him? Can I bring value? And if I can, like, you need to figure that out, right? So in this call, maybe I ask a bit about the gig, what he's like, what his issues right now are. Is it more that he doesn't get enough views with his or engagement with his content, or does he just need someone to edit his content? How much need is there? Like, does he already has he already worked with an editor? It's also important to know, is he working with an editor at this moment? Like these are questions you need to ask in this call, because you also want to find out, right? Like, you're almost like a sort of like a doctor, like trying to diagnose your client. So you're diagnosing the client, and then if it is a potential, then you can go to the next call, which you book directly on the same call, and then you can pitch him in on like a offer for him. And that also makes that offer way more valuable, because you can really like dial it in into his or her needs. So for example, if someone is saying like, hey, actually I've already been working with an editor, but the views have been low, well, then you can really like maybe even say like, okay, well, as you said, your views have been low. What we're going to do, we're going to set up a growth plan, and basically work with you together to grow your channel. We also have like a certainty built in, so like a minimum of this amount of views per video. If not, you don't even have to pay us, and that this will basically fill into his needs. If his needs are, for example, hey, I'm really struggling with, or the current editor cost me a lot of time, for example. That's also a thing, because a lot of these potential clients, they don't have enough time, because they're high paying clients, and they or probably hopefully they earn a lot of money, so they don't have enough time. And what you see a lot is that they outsource it to an editor, but then it costs them a lot of time. Well, then you can also jump into that, like, hey, when we start working together, then we'll make sure to take everything out of your hand. So it won't will take you 1 hour per 2 weeks, and then again, if it will cost more than that, I'll refund. We'll do a refund or something like that. So you really dial into the needs in the second call, and that is a sales call. But again, I would still not call it a sales call. Would more call it like a proposal type of thing. Buy Bitcoin. And no, yeah, to fast track, basically, I would do a couple things. I think one is a big thing, is like documenting your stuff, and I even fall for this trap. But like, a lot of people, especially me, also, I had the same issue. Like, when I started out, I was too scared to share stuff, or like even about personal life and like things like that. But I think that a lot of clients, they work together with people, and if you have some personality, that helps a lot. You need to see it like this: if you have like 500 editors, and they all have the same avatar, and they also have the same bio, how are you going to choose between them? So what differentiates you between another editor? Well, part of it is, of course, creativity. Part of it is your skill. But how does a potential client see that? They don't. So I would definitely like say, like, okay, try to personalize it, and like also don't be too scared to overshare stuff. That's one. And to also, and this is a trap I fell for and still fall for, but now it's less of an issue. But the always keep outreaching, because at the beginning I reached out, and then I got some results. And then what happens a lot, where people will fall for, and this may be not that relevant for people that just start out, but it is good to already say that, let's say you get 1 or 2 clients, or maybe 3 clients, and you're full, you stop outreaching. And that's what everyone does. I do it, and I think everyone falls for it. But what happens then is that that one client you're working with, maybe after 3 months, he thinks like, hey, let's try out another editor, even though you delivered like perfectly fine. That can always happen, like, even the best editors, that happens to. So then you're fucked. So it's always good to keep reaching out, and like keep doing outreach, even if it's like a couple a week. Like, it doesn't have to be much, but just to keep doing it. And again, I still fall for this trap now. It's not a big issue anymore, but it does still happen. So that's the second thing. And there's probably tons of other things that I would say, but these are the two things that I think would definitely help. Yeah, I get this question a lot. It's difficult to say, because of course I get a lot, like a lot from it, like in terms of money, but also like in terms of potential clients, which I now just send through to my community. I wouldn't per se, like, how I did it. I wouldn't recommend it to most people or most editors, and that's because it costs a lot of time, and I had this time, but also it costs a lot of money. I mean, if you want to invest in a YouTube channel, but just like, yeah, time and money, basically. So I wouldn't advise it, because especially in the I've been lucky with my YouTube channel also. There's a part of luck too, but also I've been doing tutorials for as long as I can remember. So yeah, I don't recommend that per se. Again, you can always document your process a bit, but I do think it's quite a bit of like a shiny object syndrome right now. I think like building a personal brand is important, but also don't overvalue it. There's some people that really sell it like it's the next big thing, and of course it's really valuable, but not for everyone, because like building a YouTube, or building a personal brand, or an Instagram, it all costs so much time and money. And think of what is important. Like, let's say you're in the 0 to 1K range, then I would never recommend to do that, because then you can spend that time way better to first grow some cash flow, and then you can focus on that. Because otherwise, also, you're going to be stressed with work, and like with getting a video up, because you need to be consistent. You need to have a video up every week. Yeah, so I wouldn't recommend it unless it comes a bit more natural to you. I think, Ben, you're quite a good example with it. You post, I would say, like, quite easy content, like that you can post every day. You do edit it, of course, but it's not like, at least I hope I'm not insulting you, but like, it's not days of work, because you need to upload every day, and it comes a bit more natural to you. So in your case, it definitely, I would recommend to just continue what you're doing. But for a lot of people that ask me this, they haven't even reached out yet. They didn't do their sales. They haven't set up an Instagram page. Like, so yeah, I wouldn't really recommend it to a lot of people.